Wow, welcome to 2022. Whether you are joining live or watching this video at a time that works better for you, I firmly believe the hardest part of most things is beginning or showing up, and you have done that. So, for that, I think we can all celebrate ourselves. Victory already. Everything else is just locking it in to help us hopefully live a more peaceful and present life. Generally, we will start promptly right when the clock strikes. We'll get moving. But today, since it's the first day, I'm going to quickly roll through a couple little housekeeping points. As I mention these things, you're welcome to kind of move in a gentle way that feels good to you. Just try not to fall asleep. I'll be really fast. So my name is Carly. It's very nice to meet you. Lots of familiar faces. For some of us, this is our 1 year anniversary of practicing Mindful Mornings yoga. And for some, it's our very first time together. So welcome all. I think the most important thing really to mention is that this is your practice. So as we go through, it's my intention to give cues that will add a variety of options for the practitioners so that we can meet you wherever you are. And really, that's a mutual responsibility. So I'll give cues coming from a perspective of safety and alignment, but then it's up to you to practice exploring your body, yourself, and accepting whatever you find there and working in a way that feels safe and appropriate for you. As I mentioned before I started recording, the recording will only be on my video that's on Spotlight. So you are welcome to have your video on so we can all see each other and interact a little bit, or not. That's totally your call. Again, your comfort is the most important thing here. Props are strongly encouraged. I mentioned this in the tickets and in the emails. The props that I use almost every day are blocks. I like the slightly thicker ones, a strap, and a folded blanket. You can improvise using a belt or a dish towel or any piece of fabric for the strap. And if you don't have blocks, you don't necessarily need to go spend money on them. You could also use household items like toilet paper rolls and large peanut butter jars. The plastic ones are safer probably. So props are encouraged, and I would suggest that you bring them with you to the mat every day, just in case I give cues for them or in case you see an opportunity to use them. I think that's it. Let's get moving. So as we go through the month, I will introduce more mudras, more mantras and meditation and breathing techniques. But today, let's move. Let's reward ourselves for waking up and starting this first day of the year with mindfulness. So find your comfortable seat, whatever that means and looks like to you. One of the beauties of practicing at home is that hopefully you don't feel any judgment, or if you do, you can notice it's from that little chattery voice in the mind that is not real anyway. So no judgment of yourself for what your shape looks or feels like. Just let yourself arrive. You might be perched on a blanket. Maybe you're in a chair today. Wherever you are, take a full breath in and let it go. Inhaling, I am here now. Exhaling, I am here now. You might close your eyes or just soften your gaze looking down your cheeks. You might kind of tap into your spatial awareness. Notice if the torso is leaning forwards. Perhaps you lean back in space, relatively stacking the shoulders over the hips. Maybe you draw your chin back in space, so stacking ears over shoulders over hips. And again, breathe. Every breath is a new beginning. I like to start my asana, my physical yoga practices, with the chant of Om. Om is a very auspicious sound, said to be the sound of all sounds and the sounds of cosmic consciousness. In a modern science practical way, chanting also helps us tone our vagal nerve, which helps us tap into the parasympathetic nervous system, which helps us heal the body. So if you're not comfortable chanting Om, don't do it. You're welcome to also sigh the breath out or hum. Anything that creates a vibration inside of your body helps us tap into the vagal nerve. So if you'd like, you can rub your hands together. And as you do this, you might notice warmth, maybe tingling, maybe some kind of sensation coming to the hands, maybe not. Practicing observing our experience without evaluating it, and slowly stop rubbing your hands together. Come to stillness with the hands gently pressing into each other. You might roll the shoulders up, back, and down, sitting tall and reverently like royalty. If you'd like to chant Om or sigh, inhale deeply. Gently drop your chin towards your chest. You can keep your hands in this prayer gesture or lower your hands to your legs. Eyes opened or closed, breathing here, noticing what's here. You might consider that we're bowing the knowledge of the mind to the wisdom of the heart. And if that doesn't work for you, you might notice a stretch or some sensation on the back of the neck or between the shoulder blades. Continuing to breathe deeply, you might slowly invite neck rolls, rolling your head to the left and then to the right. I don't generally cue to roll your head in a full circle, dropping your head back. It's generally safer for our spine to keep the head side to side and forward, but you do what works best for you. And as you breathe deeply, inviting these gentle neck movements in, I'll share a quote from Tara Brach. Tara teaches, radical acceptance is the willingness to experience ourselves and our life as it is. A moment of radical acceptance is a moment of genuine freedom. So my hope for us over this next month, this exciting commitment of the January Yoga Challenge, is that we practice knowing ourselves and practice accepting ourselves. Return your head to neutral, sitting tall, hands to shoulder caps. You might grip your shoulders with your fingers if you can and draw tiny circles. And as you breathe here, still sitting tall, notice which directions your circles went. Are you backstroking or going forwards? You can let them start getting larger. And eventually switch the directions of these shoulder circles, starting large and slowly getting smaller. As the arms get smaller and smaller, keep drawing the elbows away from each other. Glance down, notice which leg you have crossed in front. We have all sorts of subconscious preferences, and becoming alert to them can help us invite more balance into our lives. All right, release your hands, palms to the sky, arms wide. Breathe here. If you're already experiencing a lot of sensation, you might stay just like this. You know, we live a lot of our modern lives here in flexion, arms short, chest concave. So the opportunity to experience your full wingspan might be enough. Maybe you drop your fingertips towards the earth, palms still towards the sky, more sensation. Keep drawing the arms away from each other, broad through the shoulder blades. And notice if you're clenching your jaw, you might put a little space between your back teeth. And you're also welcome to bring in some neck movement, maybe dropping your head side to side. And as you continue breathing, maybe you start drawing circles with your wrists. What's here now? One more big breath. And on your next inhale, spread your fingers wide, reach your arms up overhead, big, big, big stretch. Exhale, fold forward, let your hands come to the earth in front of you. And now it's your choice. If you want to fold way forward and round the spine, drop the head and neck, you can. Or you might find more sensation by keeping your spine long and leaning forwards. Maybe you go ahead and incorporate your blocks if you have them. Maybe you sway side to side, or maybe stillness best serves you here. Notice, if you can, the quality of your mind this morning or whenever you're practicing. Is the mind extra jumpy and jittery, looking for action? Is it curious? Is it judging? Just noticing what's happening. One more big breath. Inhaling, walk your hands back towards your body and then bring them back behind you. Fingertips can face your body if that works for you. Otherwise, adjust your hands in any way. You could also come to soft knuckles. Draw your inner elbows towards each other. The shoulder blades slide together, hugging the spine like a friend, sliding down, lifting the chest towards the sky. Navel back towards your spine and up towards your heart. Breathing here, opening up your heart space. You might stay just like this, or maybe you bring your feet to the ground. Maybe you bring your knees together. Core muscles engage, spine long. Maybe you catch a little balance. Spread your toes wide. Perhaps you float your shins to parallel to the earth. You might extend one or both legs. Maybe you release your hands to reach to the distance or to hold the legs. Or maybe you're somewhere in between all of those cues. Remember, this is your personal practice. Freedom to explore and find what works best for you. And notice your breath. 3 more cycles of breath. Do with it what you will. If you're feeling particularly energized or strong, you can reach your arms up overhead. Victorious, we showed up to day 1. On an exhale, return to easy seat, crossing the opposite or non-dominant leg in front. Hands on your knees, begin to draw circles, inhaling your heart forwards and exhaling your heart back. You're welcome to lift your chin as you inhale and drop your chin towards your chest as you exhale. And when it feels right, switch directions. As we breathe here, you might notice the very base of your seat. What's happening there? Your hips might be totally anchored to the ground, or maybe like when we spin a penny and it rolls around the edges before it lands flat. Maybe you're experiencing that. This movement is essentially like a massage to all of the muscles that connect on our pelvic bowl. Return to neutral. Walk your fingertips out away from you and flip your palms forward, a little external rotation in the shoulders. Inhale and reach your right arm up to the sky. Take a fold over to the right. To the left. With your left hand, you might push the ground away, exaggerating the C-shaped curve of your spine. Keep your right hip anchored into the earth. Good morning, Toby. That's a New Year blessing. We have a Toby sighting. On an inhale, lift both arms up overhead and fold to the other side, anchoring your left hip into the earth, reaching your left fingertips up and over. Breathe deeply. On an inhale, high. Come back through center, reach both arms up. Exhale, fold forward in a way that accommodates your cat. There we go. You might keep your spine long, or maybe you round your spine. Maybe you find stillness, or maybe you sway a little side to side. Move in a way that works for you today. If you catch yourself thinking any thoughts like, holy cow, I'm tight, I can't do this, why am I doing this? Notice the thoughts and then breathe. It's okay. You're not tight. Your muscles are just a little restricted. Another breath or two, noticing. Radical acceptance is the willingness to experience ourselves and our life as it is. A moment of radical acceptance is a moment of genuine freedom. On an inhale, walk your hands back towards your body, sit up tall, and roll over your knees, making your way to tabletop. As you arrive in tabletop, spread your fingers really wide, then bring the thumbs in about halfway. Try to grip the yoga mat or the ground with your fingertips, with the root of your knuckles, and lighten the load on your wrist and the heel of your hands. Your hips are over your knees, which are about hips distance apart. On an inhale, drop your belly, shoulder blades slide together. Look up any amount, stretching your throat, that we might speak the truth in a compassionate way in 2022. On an exhale, round your spine, push the ground away, chin towards chest, navel towards spine, towards sky. And inhaling, drop the belly, shoulder blades slide together. Start to move at whatever pace feels good to you. Inhaling and exhaling, complete cycles of breath through cow and cat. As you're breathing and flexing the spine, notice what's going on in the hands. There's a tendency for a lot of us to dump the weight into our wrists, and we want to have a long yoga life. So the more we can grip into our fingertips and the knuckles, the easier it is on our wrists. Return to a neutral spine. Tuck your left toes and then send the left leg long, dragging the toes along the mat. For anyone who's new, you're witnessing the absurdity of how I modify my world for the kitty cat. Press back through your left heel and then try to drag your right knee towards your hands. Feel your core muscles engage. Keep that engagement, and perhaps you explore lifting the left heel towards the sky. Imagine the left toes pointing towards the right leg, so a little internal rotation. Push the ground away with the arms. Maybe you shift the weight into your left hand and peel your right hand off of the mat. Maybe you reach the right fingertips to the distance in front of you. Core muscles engaged. We're not swaying into our low back. Rather, we're hugging the navel up towards the spine. Keep a lot of length. Work with what you've got. Big breath in. Exhale, option 2, hug the arm and knee in towards the midline. Inhale, re-extend. Exhale, option to hug it all in. One more time to extend. And exhale, hand and knee down. Flip your left palm towards the sky. Maybe you make a gentle fist and release. Thank you, wrist. I promise to try my best to go easy on you. Plant your left hand. Tuck your right toes and push your right leg long, keeping the toes on the ground. As you settle in, press back through your right heel. Nice stretch through the energetic lines of the leg. You might drag your left knee towards your hands, core muscles engaging in that way, pushing the ground away, gripping with your fingertips. You might float the right heel towards the sky. If you've lifted the right foot any amount, imagine the toes pointing towards the left leg. Little internal rotation of the femur in the hip. Breathing, core engaged, so we're not swaying into our low back. No cow pose here. If this feels okay, you can lift the left hand and reach to the distance. Breathe. Inhale for length. Exhale, option to hug it all into the midline. Inhale, reach. Exhale to the midline. Inhale, reach. Exhale, hand and knee down. Flip your right palm to the sky. Gently breathe as you might make a fist, softly opening and closing your right hand. Return your right palm to the earth. Bring your knees out wide, big toes together. Inhale deeply and exhale, sink your hips back, finding a variation of Balasana, child's pose. You can walk your fingertips up overhead, keeping your arms active as the fingertips walk up on the mat. Let your head and neck hang heavy. Maybe that means you bring a block under your forehead, giving yourself some support. If your hips are elevated, that's fine. You might put a blanket under your hips, or you might just roll with it. We'll only be here another breath or two. Accepting our bodies and our experience as it is. One more big breath in child's pose. On an inhale, rise up, hips directly over knees. Walk your knees back, hips distance. And then walk your hands forward, melting your heart down towards the mat, Anahatasana, heart melting or puppy pose. Hips over knees, core muscles engaged. Again, an option to bring a block or some sort of support under your head. Anytime we can support the head, it signals to our nervous system that we are safe. If you have a lot of space in your shoulders today, you can also put your hands on blocks, giving you a little bit more space to explore. And some folks bring their chins to the earth rather than their foreheads. So do whatever works for you as we stay for 3 more breaths. If it's uncomfortable, you can return to child's pose or any shape that works for you. Breathing deeply, press the tops of your feet into the earth for stability as we lift the torso and walk the hands back under the shoulders. Tuck your toes, knees or hips distance apart. Walk your hands back towards your thighs. Just for a moment, we will sit on our heels. If it's excruciating, modify or don't do it. You might bring your hands back to spread your toes wide. Look at this. He's being a ham for a whole new audience today. Taking one more breath here, stretching out the plantar fascia, the connective tissue of the feet. Walk your hands back down, returning to tabletop. You might tap your feet out and then tuck your toes again, preparing for our first downward facing dog together. Pause and look at your elbows. If you put a little bend in the elbows and they go towards the long edges of the mat, as they will for most of us, you might explore wrapping the arms around so that the elbows point more towards the thighs and the eye, the inner elbow, points more towards the space between the thumb and index finger. Giving ourselves a good foundation. Big inhale. Exhale, lift the knees off the ground. Hover here, feel your core muscles engaged. And then as you breathe, start melting your heart back towards your thighs as you lift your hips to the sky. Take any movement that your body is asking for here in this triangle shape, Adho Mukha Svanasana. Breathe deeply as you explore. And as you start to settle in, you might shake the head and nod the head, trying to let the neck hang heavy. Our arms are in flexion, so the shoulders are sliding up towards the ears, but then the neck again is really relaxed. The heart is melting back towards the thighs, just like it was in puppy pose. One more big breath here. Kidding, one more big breath. Let's all make sure our knees are bent. Inhale and look forward between your hands with your core muscles engaged. Slowly exhale and step yourself to the top of the mat, whatever it takes to get there, landing in Uttanasana, forward fold. Feet hips distance apart, maybe even wider. Bird's eye view of our foundation so we can see that the second and third toe are centered with the middle of the heel. And then we can imagine drawing a rectangle around the feet from the base of the big toe, that knuckle, to the base of the pinky, to the bottom corners of the heel. And throughout your yoga practice, those are the 4 points on each foot that we always want to be pressing into. AKA the toes are light, not gripping the mat. One more breath here. If your knees aren't bent, maybe bend them just a little more. On an inhale, lift up halfway. Long legs, long spine. Hands slide up the legs any amount. On an exhale, soft knees fold forward. On an inhale, press into the 4 corners of your feet. Rise up with a long spine, reaching out and up. Exhale, hands to your heart. Inhale, slowly reach out and up. Maybe you lift your heels off of the ground any amount, just playing, exploring. Exhale, heels down, arms down, slow swan dive all the way back to fold forward. Bending the knees anytime. Inhale, lift halfway, long spine. Exhale, fold. Inhale, root down as you rise up. Long spine is the safest way to get there. Reaching out and up. Maybe you play with lifting the heels off of the ground. Exhale, hands to your heart, heels to the earth. One more time. Inhale, reach out and up. Option to play with tippy toes. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, lift halfway, long spine. Exhale to fold. Inhale, rise up, reaching, maybe floating the heels off of the ground. Exhale, hands to your heart. Soft knees, imagine anchoring your tailbone and low back down. Arms by your side will gently twist side to side. Try to keep the, scratch that. I was gonna say keep the hips neutral, but we'll go easier on the knees. So allow the legs to move. Letting the back leg, when you're twisting to one side, letting it pivot in. Full breaths. Another twist or two. And then we'll return to the top of our mat. If you have blocks, be sure that they are set up at the top of the mat, waiting to support you. Pause for a moment here. Mountain pose, Tadasana. So feel your feet on the ground. Maybe here you can notice texture, maybe temperature. Feel your kneecaps lift as you engage your quadriceps. You'll also feel your hip points lift as you lengthen your low back, tailbone anchoring down. Heart lifting, shoulder blades can lift up and then roll back and down. Core muscles engaged. Lots of integrity in this seemingly simple shape. On an inhale, reach out and up. Exhale, slow motion swan dive all the way down, bending your knees at any point. If you've got blocks, you can grab those. Slowly step your right foot way back in space. Give yourself time to settle in. And as you feel ready, lower your right knee and untuck the right toes. The left knee, the front knee, is stacked over the left ankle. Long spine as we breathe here, and you might imagine squeezing your legs together. Another way to think of it is imagine dragging your right knee towards your left heel. So that gives us isometric muscle contraction, which is the muscles hugging to the bones. Follow your breath. If this feels really accessible, you might explore reaching your arms up overhead. Shoulders stacking over hips. Breathing deeply, option to open your arms out wide, drawing big circles, just inviting more movement in, which helps us pump the marvelous lymphatic fluid through our system, our body's incredible immune system that did not come equipped with a pump, so it literally relies on us to move our bodies. As you're ready, return your hands to either side of your left foot, perhaps on blocks if you're using them. Shift your hips back in space. So the right hip is over the right knee, and then walk your left foot forward, coming into Ardha Hanumanasana, half split. And then we'll lift our left toes towards the sky. Hopefully here you're feeling something on the back of the left leg. Keep a long spine as you breathe, and you might imagine pulling your left hip back in space. Some folks really like to fold forward here. You do whatever works for you. Noticing your breath. If you're familiar with Ujjayi Pranayama or that victorious breath, you're welcome to incorporate that anytime. That's where we're constricting the back of our throat like we're fogging a mirror or a window. Breathing in and out through the nose with the throat constricted like that. Press your left toes towards the earth, staying in Ardha Hanumanasana, so half split, and now stretching especially the top of the left foot and ankle. Perhaps returning to the victorious breath. That breathing practice helps focus the mind, and a lot of people experience more calm. Slowly bend into your left knee, walk your hands forwards, plant your hands on the earth, tuck your right toes, lift the right knee off the ground. This might be a really big stretch, just a breath here. And then step yourself back to plank, whatever it takes to get there. Push the ground away in plank and know that you can always lower your knees. Staying for another breath or two, we can marvel at how this looks just like mountain pose, just flipped on its side and with zombie arms. One more big breath. Exhale, we'll all lower our knees. Slowly start to bend your elbows and do it in a way so that your arms hug your side body as we slowly lower all the way down, all the way down. Point your toes back, lengthen your low back, lift your heart as you breathe. Finding baby cobra. Press the tops of your feet into the earth. I like my feet a little wider, gives low back a bit more space. I think traditionally it's taught with your big toes together. You might float your hands off of the ground a bit, drawing your shoulders together and away from your ears. Breathing. If it's available, maybe you press your hands into the earth, arms hug the ribs as you lift your heart up towards the sky, finding a larger expression of Bhujangasana Cobra pose. It's never a competition. Here's a quote: yoga is an internal practice. The rest is just a circus. One more breath wherever you've gone with your back bend of cobra. And exhale, lower down. Make a pillow for your head with your hands, stacking one hand on the other. Bend your knees and let your feet fall side to side. So a gentle spinal twist. Letting the legs fall like windshield wipers side to side. Another breath. And then lower your toes back to the earth. Engage the legs. Maybe your knees lift off of the mat. Bring your hands back under your shoulders in line with the breasts. Big breath in, arms hug the side body. Exhale completely, no breath in the body, then powerfully push the ground away, rising up through plank pose. I think it's the only push-up I'll ask of us. One more big breath in. Soft knees, exhale, melt your heart back. Find downward facing dog, this triangle shape. If that's not on your agenda right now, you can also find child's pose. 3 to 5 slow breaths, giving yourself exactly what you need right now. Some days that might mean that you transition into child's pose or seated meditation and take it easy. Some days that might mean that you're doing push-ups in between. Do what works for you. Just notice what you're choosing. Notice if you're clenching in the jaw or holding tension that you might let go of in the neck. On an inhale, look forward between your hands. And as you exhale, step yourself to the top of the mat, returning to Uttanasana, forward fold. You might clasp opposite elbows and maybe you sway a little side to side. Release your hands, and on an inhale, rise up, long spine, reaching out and up. Option to play with coming to your tippy toes. Some days that works, some days not. Exhale, heels and hands down. Inhale, reach out and up. Exhale, fold forward. Perhaps you grab blocks and step your left foot way back in space, pausing in high runner's lunge. This is a huge stretch for the front of your left hip flexor, so if you can't keep your legs straight, it's okay. One thing I will ask is that all of our right knees are over our right ankles. One more big breath here. And as you're ready, lower your left knee down, untuck your toes using the top of your foot as an anchor as you imagine squeezing the legs together, giving yourself that isometric contraction, a lift through the pelvic floor, long spine, full breath. You can stay exactly where you are, or perhaps you press into your front foot and lift your torso, reaching your arms up to the sky. option here to draw those big circles again. You can also add circles within circles by revolving your wrists. Full breath. I am here now. One more breath. And from wherever you've gone, we'll all meet with our hands framing the right foot, perhaps on blocks if you have them. And then shift your hips back in space so that the left hip is over the left knee. Wiggle your right leg forwards and then lift the right toes. So the right heel is extended on the mat, and then we imagine dragging the right hip back in space. Half split. Long spine wherever you've gone. And maybe you choose to explore folding forward, maybe not. Our hamstrings are not usually this extended, so go easy on them. Notice where your mind goes during moments of quiet. Breathing deeply, we'll press the right toes towards the earth, now stretching the top of the right ankle. I almost said wrist. It is the wrist of the leg. Again, imagine drawing your right hip back in space, so we've got traction. One more cycle of breath here, giving your connective tissue time to unwind and lengthen. And as you breathe, we'll slowly put a bend in the right leg, walk the blocks forward, plant your hands, tuck your left toes, big breath, and as you're ready, step yourself back to plank. Push the ground away, core muscles engaged, you're so strong. One more big breath here. We'll all lower our knees as we exhale, lower our torso all the way down, point your toes back, lengthen your low back on an inhale, shoulder blades sliding together and guiding the heart up. Finding Bhujangasana, cobra or baby cobra. However you express your cobra pose, please check in that your shoulders are not up by your ears. The whole idea here is to create space in the body. One more big breath wherever you are is perfect. As you exhale, lower down. This time we'll tuck the toes right away. You can push yourself up through plank or crawl your way up through tabletop. Make your way back to downward facing dog. Child's pose is also a fine option here. Let yourself breathe deeply wherever you go. If you're in the triangle shape of downward dog, look back towards your thighs, letting your head and neck be heavy, and imagine your inner thighs spiraling towards each other into the sky back behind you. That's internal rotation in the hips. Heart melting back towards the thighs, hands pushing the ground away. One more big breath. On an inhale, look forwards, and on an exhale, step yourself to the top of the mat. Uttanasana, forward fold. Inhale, rise all the way up. Exhale, hands to your heart. If you'd like, you can move a block to the middle area of your mat, I think on your left side. And then we'll step our left foot back, setting ourselves up for Warrior 2, Virabhadrasana 2. I do heel to arch alignment, front heel with back arch. I've heard that heel to heel alignment is a more traditional method. As always, do what works best for you. Start to bend into your right leg, thigh coming towards parallel to the earth. And as you do this, notice that you can see the right big toe on the inside of your right knee the whole time. We want to make sure that that's true, so that might mean that you back out of it a bit. And then feel the pinky side edge of your left foot anchoring you in. Look down and see that your shoulders are over your hips. Lengthen your low back. Lift your heart, lift your crown, and then reach your fingertips away from each other, coming straight out of the shoulders. Being very mindful that the left shoulder stays open, pivot just your head to look over your right fingertips. Warrior two, we can easily see how this shape got its name. Soft jaw, full breath. One more big breath here. Hands to hips, straighten your right leg, pivot on the heel so that the toes point towards the long edge of your mat. Anchor your spine down, lift your heart. On an exhale, hinge forward into a wide leg forward fold. The block perhaps is there. You can rest your head on it. You can rest your hands on it. You can walk your hands back behind you under your legs. Anywhere that feels like you can breathe deeply is fine. Check in again with your foundation. Can you feel your feet? And can you send a little more energy to the pinky side edges of your feet? Can you relax your neck and shoulders just for the next breath? Now, staying as you are in this wide leg forward fold, bend your knees and sink your hips really low. Might feel a little awkward, just exploring. And lift your hips back up, returning to wide leg forward fold. With a long spine, inhale, slowly stand up. Hands back to hips, pivot on your left heel so your left toes point towards the short edge of your mat and bend into your left knee. We can see the left big toe on the inside of the left knee. We can feel the pinky side edge of our right foot pressing into the earth, shoulders over hips, fingertips reaching away from each other. Being very mindful that the right shoulder stays open. Turn just the head and eyes to look over your left fingertips and breathe. See if you can rest all of your awareness on the next 3 cycles of breath. Float your hands back to your hips. Pivot on your left heel so the toes point forward. Inhale, long spine. And exhale, slowly hinge forward, returning to the wide leg forward fold. About 3 breaths here. And as you breathe, slowly start heel toeing your feet so that they come hips distance apart. With an inhale, rise up with a long spine. You can reach to the sky, getting a full body stretch. And exhale, hands to your heart. You can return to face the front of the mat or wherever is easiest for you to see what's going on. And if you'd like, you can grab your block and squeeze it between your upper thighs. This helps our body understand what we're asking of it when we say isometric muscle contraction. So squeezing the block, you might notice a little bit of internal rotation, the inner thighs spiraling in towards each other. You might notice more space in the low back, and we can anchor the tailbone down. Finding mountain pose in this way. Now let's play with coming up on our toes. And then lowering the heels back down. Sometimes moves like this keep me humble. Inhale, lift your heels off of the ground, breathing, letting it be what it is. Exhaling, lowering the heels down. Inhale, float the heels maybe an imperceptible amount off of the mat, and then lower them back down. Pause for just a breath or two here. Standing in stillness, you might notice how the body is always moving. Even when we ask stillness of it, there's likely a sway through the body. Certainly as the breath comes and goes. Most definitely in the internal landscape, movement is always there. Movement is life. Life is movement. Release the block if you chose to squeeze it, and then return to mountain pose, imagining that the block is still there. Keeping all of the integrity of Tadasana mountain pose, slowly start carrying the weight towards your right leg. And you might lift the left foot off of the ground. Maybe it just hovers right there. This is already an incredible amount of work, so you might stay here. Perhaps you rotate your left leg so the toes point away from your body, and you bend your left knee, letting the toes and the left foot find the right ankle. Your hands can be out by your sides like mountain pose. Maybe you bring your hands to your heart, or maybe you reach your arms up overhead as we explore variations of Vrikshasana tree pose. If this feels really steady, you might slide the left foot up the right leg, maybe even lifting it above the knee. The only rule is that it doesn't go directly on the knee joint because that's a hinged joint and it does not hinge that way. Another breath or two to explore wherever you've gone. And if you fall out of it, we have the beauty of being able to regrow trees very quickly. So return. And breathing deeply, slowly return to mountain pose. Pause and notice if there's a rush of energy flowing through the body, if there's sensation in what was the standing leg. And then return to pure mountain pose, imagining that you're squeezing the block between your thighs, lengthening your low back, keeping the heart and crown lifted. Slowly start carrying the weight into your left leg, floating the right foot off of the ground. Try not to grip the mat with your left toes. Keep them light. Perhaps you externally rotate your right leg and bend the right knee. You might keep the toes of the right foot on the ground like a little kickstand, or maybe the right foot moves up the left leg any amount. Do what works for you with your hands. Sometimes pressing the palms together in prayer mudra is really beneficial. We have this energetic line that runs through the body called the Sushumna. So when we press into the central parts of the body, it helps tap us into our balance. Notice your breath. Notice the movement that exists even in stillness. As you're ready, we'll slowly return to mountain pose. Pause and notice. We'll make our way onto our seat. As you arrive towards the center of your mat, if you have anything that you'd like to use for Shavasana, like a blanket or socks, you can get those handy. Sitting really tall at first. You might lean back in space with the long spine. Maybe this is enough. Maybe you release your hands and reach to the distance. Feet anchored to the earth, core muscles engaged. Slowly, slowly start to release your spine one vertebrae at a time onto the earth. When you land, hug one knee and then the other into your chest. Alpanasana. It's a really grounding shape. You might rock side to side. And see if you can relax your shoulders and your head onto the ground here. Maybe you can't draw your knees so closely into your body, and your hands are just resting on your outer thighs. Again, we work with what we've got. No sense in trying to do anything other than that, right? Breathe deeply. You are here. Release your arms out wide like a T or a cactus, whatever you've got room for. Big inhale. As you exhale, let your legs fall off to the left. And if this doesn't feel good in your body, nice option is to bring blocks under your left legs, giving you some support. 3 to 5 slow breaths here in a recline, twisted posture. Notice where your mind has gone. The mind has a tendency to fret about the future or ruminate on the past. And knowing that's just what the mind does, it's okay. We can simply practice noticing it happening and bringing it back to the present moment. Noticing the breath here and slowly releasing the twist, returning to neutral. If you used props under your legs, you can move them to the right side. Inhale deeply and exhale, let your legs fall to the right. You might notice that in certain shapes, our breath is a bit restricted. And just imagine expanding into the areas that you can. So right now, our left ribs, left belly area are all wide open for expansion. 3 to 5 slow, full breaths, trusting that this time is valuable. Noticing what's here and accepting it for what it is. Acceptance is freedom. As you're ready, return to neutral, perhaps hugging your legs in. And when it feels right, send your legs and arms long, finding your way into our final shape, Shavasana. Palms flipped towards the sky with the arms and legs open a bit. So give yourself space. And then practice stillness. May I accept myself as I am today. May I learn to love and accept myself unconditionally. I am here. I am home. Staying in this resting posture for another few breaths, you might visualize yourself once this goal is accomplished. So if it's your intention to practice yoga 31 days this month, or however you may have customized this challenge, imagine yourself mission complete. How does that feel? Deepen your breath and invite movement back into your body. Of course, if you have time to linger in Shavasana longer, I definitely encourage that. But for the sake of timeliness, we will make our way back to an easy seated shape if you'd like to close our practice together. If you'd like, you can keep your gaze soft and unfocused, maybe even eyes closed. Returning to an easy seat as we began our practice an hour ago. Enjoying a few breaths here. And now that we've had an hour of mindful movement and intentional breath, perhaps there is an intention that you would like to set for the rest of this month. Maybe there's a personal mantra, a phrase or saying that will carry you through. Maybe it's a dedication. If you'd like, you can draw your hands together in front of your heart. Imagine sealing that intention as we create some vibration, either through a sigh or through a chant of Om. Inhaling deeply. Thank you for sharing your practice and your time. The teacher in me honors and recognizes the teacher in each of you.